Glad to have you back. Well, as promised before the break, Professor Chris Kwaja, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, Modibo Adama University, Yola, joins us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We had started this conversation with a former diplomat on the diplomacy of it all. But let's look at the academic aspect of ECOWAS at 50. 5 decades on, where do you think ECOWAS stands? We have one surviving founding father, and it happens to be a Nigerian leader, retired General Yakubu Gowon. Where does ECOWAS stand in your view?
I think ECOWAS is one of the most resilient institutions you can find in the world today. From 1975 to date, ECOWAS made 3 major investments. The first investment was economic integration in the context of the ECOWAS ideal of using trade to unite the region. The second investment was the move towards democratization.
Okay.
And the focus was on democracy as a key vehicle for leadership recruitment in the region. The third investment is on peace, security, and stability. And that was a major milestone for ECOWAS in the early 1990s when ECOWAS went into Liberia and Sierra Leone. And the credit must be given to Nigeria for taking on that responsibility without a dime from any donor. And that was the first case in the history of peacekeeping that one single country will shoulder almost 100% the responsibility of using its own finances to bring peace, security, and stability in these 2 countries. And I think for me, the point is that regardless of some of the challenges we see and we are confronted with, it's important to place on the table the fact that these 3 major investments defined the identity of ECOWAS, that made ECOWAS to be a model for many other organizations, IGAD and several of them, to say there are areas of experiences from ECOWAS that we can leverage on in order to build our own institutions. Even the African Union itself, when the whole conversation around the transformation of the Organization of African Unity to the African Union came up, the ECOWAS example of how you can keep a region strong, united, became a model that the African Union had to look into. So I think it's important for us as West Africans to celebrate this institution, and we give credit to our own father, General Yakubu Gowon, for that investment. Himself and President Edema of Togo saw the need to come together and begin to put in place key building blocks for regional unity. And that unity was defined from the perspective of economic integration.
Now, let's even stay with the issue of economic integration. 20 years after ECOWAS came on board, there's been this attempt to come up with, a common currency that still has not seen the light of day. Well, in April this year, CBN, central bank governors of the West Africa region actually met, and they emphasized their commitment to common currency. Number one, how desirable, how important would this common currency be to further unify the region? Why hasn't it taken off till date?
We've seen the successes associated with single currency. The European Union is one example. We've also seen the politics of regional integration in the context of Brexit. How Britain refused to cede its own sovereignty from the perspective of allowing the pound to now be subjected to that whole focus of bringing all the currencies together. So yes, we have the ideal. We need to unite. Currency is a major area of focus, but the politics of are countries ready to also cede all their sovereignties? The third part, which might not have played out in the European Union, is the external interference in West African politics. France, for instance, was France ready to allow the CFA go down to where the ECO will replace the CFA? That on its own was part of the politics of the currency conversation that we saw. But my take is that going forward, ECOWAS needs to reevaluate this journey. And in reevaluating the journey, it should focus on the feasibility, the desirability, and the value of having a single currency. Is it possible for ECOWAS to start with what we call the coalition of the willing? How many countries within the region are ready to say, okay, let's give it a go? We are ready to do that. If you start with 10, for instance, it's possible 5 others will now join. Unfortunately, we don't have
Kwaja,
15.
We spoke to Ambassador Keshi, who just left moments ago. He was very optimistic about the future of ECOWAS, saying it will be stronger. You're also saying we should celebrate the bloc. And I like a word you used just a moment ago, desirability. This was the desire of founding fathers 50 years ago. Are you concerned that young West Africans, may jettison that desire? Do you think that young West Africans are interested in this ideology? That's one. Two, when it comes to the type of governance we've seen in the sub-region, ECOWAS is very quick to act when there's a military coup. They impose sanctions, they suspend members. But should the bloc not just be as forceful when we see constitutional manipulation, when we see election rigging, when we see bad governance? Do you think ECOWAS perhaps should be as forceful? Abi, did I just say Abi?
Abi.
Should it be just as forceful, when it comes to these matters? Or are they not also risk to constitutional governance in the sub-region?
I think it's important to remind us of the 2009 Cairo speech by the former U.S. President Obama, where he said, Africa, you need strong institutions, not strong men. We've seen the extent to which strong men can go in either undermining or weakening institutions if these institutions don't serve their vested interest. And I think part of the problem with ECOWAS, regardless of the successes we've talked about, is this whole question of capture by the leaders themselves. We've seen a shift from the original ideal of having an ECOWAS that works, ECOWAS that is strong, to one in which it has become a club of presidents. They have this ritual of annual sessions and all that. They send out just sweet words, but no action. If ECOWAS wants to really get these young people, it must invest in getting its own strength
and make them believe in the dream of ECOWAS.
Because if you don't build public trust in institutions, then you will be grappling with what we are seeing today. But I bet you, the young men and women I see across Africa traveling through this region are a generation of people that are happy with regional integration because it works for them.
Right, we'll have to leave it there. Of course, the rise of terrorism is an issue too, especially in the Sahel region. We'll have to say thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Chris Kwaja is a professor of international relations and strategic studies, Modibo Adama University, Yola.